Greatness. Greatness. Greatness.
What's up, YouTube? We got an awesome video today on balance. What does that look like to bring balance into your life between work and family and hobbies and all the things that we put on our priority list? Is it even possible to achieve balance? And what does that look like? In this video of this Facebook Live, we're going to discuss that and talk about it. Don't forget to ring that bell so you get notified every time we get a new video out. Also, give us a thumbs up so we can push this video so more people can see it. And then, as always, subscribe to the channel. Let's jump into this. Talking about balance, what that looks like, priorities, how do you juggle? If you saw the social media post, how do you juggle family and friends, wife, maybe kids, dating, relationships, work, career, exercise, healthy eating, hobbies, rest, personal development, just everything in life. How do we handle all of those things?
Yeah. First of all, you gotta decide what you like.
Say that again.
Hunting, no hunting, biking, no biking. So, all right. So here's the funny thing is this, like, I hear so many people say, I wish I just had more fun. I wish I had more joy. I wish like I knew what I was doing, just like generic concept. And here's what I want you to think about this. The biggest thing I want you to take away is you have to learn how to have fun. You have to learn how to play. So I know this sounds super stupid, and be careful if you search for this word, but in research, this word is called playfulness. And they study adults who are just more playful. I know that sounds funny, but it'd be dudes like Tyler who you're like, bro, are you ever serious? I have to say, though, it's slightly genetic. He gets it from his mama.
Yeah. We saw the video of you playing around the other day with the grandkids.
Dude, Stella was doing ninja on me. Okay, so here's the thing. So adult playfulness, like, again, be careful, but here's the thing. They study this from all kinds of things, like from work and marriage, work-life balance, and just general personality. So here's the idea. There are 4 types of people emerge, okay? And a simple thing called adultfulness. The first person is somebody who's just outright foolish. They're just silly. Constant pranksters. Tyler Curtis. Where like everything is just fun. Just make stuff fun. So just come up with jokes when there's nothing to joke about. And you look over there in a serious thing and Tyler's laughing, and you gotta do is see him smiling and you start smiling. So that's just a general, silly, foolish kind of guy, but not foolish in the bad way, like you're dumb, but that was like foolish, like that was silly, like that kind of thing. And the funny thing is they don't have to like turn it on and turn it off because they're always kind of running that engine. If you know Stella, that's definitely Stella. She's always just being silly, just nonstop. Everything's funny to her. Sometimes you just see her staring in space and she's just giggling all by herself. Like that online movie is dope. Okay, so that's those guys, okay? The second one is somebody who's generally lighthearted, and it just takes a smile or a little pat on the back, or if you start laughing, they'll laugh with you, and then they kind of, if you leave them, they'll go back to being normal, like average. So they're a general lighthearted person, but they're still fun to roll with, okay? So that's the second type of person. Then there's those who have a lot of fun with thoughts and ideas. That's definitely me. Like even as a kid, like my buddies would say, dude, Ches, do you ever stop dreaming? Like you're always a dreamer. Like anytime there was a song about dreaming, they would just say Sanchez and they'd point to me. To this day, I'm still dreaming. The kids always laugh at me and Stacy because if we go on vacation or do anything, we see a house, we're like, oh, when we build, this is what we want to do. And they just start dying laughing. But me and Stacy, once we click, we'll have a whole house designed in our head. And they just laugh like, oh yeah, we're gonna knock out this wall, we're gonna move this, and we're gonna put the deck here, and just
and you'll talk about it for the whole vacation.
we're funny, silly on the dreaming side, ideas, and I come up with crazy ideas. I get paid because I'm an idea machine. Like I just praise the Lord because I don't get stumped. For some reason I just think about it, and the Lord just 15 ideas. They all might be stupid, but they're 15 ideas. Okay, so if you're an idea machine, you tend to be playful as an adult. And then the last one is those who are whimsical, fun, but their fun is strange, dance and sing. They do unusual type funniness, Alicia. But anyways, sometimes you're just like looking at them and they're just outside, like left field silly. But if you try to get what she's doing, the whole house will start rolling, right? Like that's why Tyler's just like trying to be in the fridge and over here be like, check her out.
Yeah, Alicia said it's our goal in life to catch each other doing things on camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's super funny. So, okay, so those are the 4 ideas. Okay, so, and you don't have to, you can kind of bounce around through there, but here's the general idea. Those types of people, they do better at work, they do better relationships, they have better relationships outside of work, better relationships outside of their family, and they don't let relationships get them down. So like if somebody's toxic in their life, they kind of could bounce off it, kind of avoid. And this is the thing I want you to focus on. Like if you can figure out what kind of playfulness you like to do, and I want you to focus on this, like take that playfulness home. So, okay, so Valencia had a sleepover at some friends of ours, and so she and and we had the girls, Stella and Eliza, and they came over and realized Valencia wasn't there. So Stella comes up and says, "Pappy, what are we gonna do? Like, what are we gonna do?" And just being silly, I just climbed on the floor, started like barking at her like a dog and stuff. And then she just looked at me kind of weird, and she's like, "You're gonna bring out the tiger." And then we started like doing this little animal fight thing, and it lasted for a few minutes. But what really happened is she comes up and sits on my lap. And she's like, "Hey, Pappy, can you show me like a real lion, a real tiger?" So we start looking at this stuff, this whole conversation about who's the strongest animal, how do they kill each other, how do they determine a winner. And I showed her the king of the jungle and like a tiger roar, a lion roar. So she says, "I'm not going to bring out the tiger no more. Pappy, you can have the tiger." She's like, "I'm going to bring out the lion." So then we went and started fighting again. And then the whole idea is she's like, "Come up with an animal who can beat a lion." So I'd say an elephant. We'd wrestle. She'd end up on my back with like a fake bite on my neck. And then she would be like, "I'm the winner." So Tyler comes home, later on, and she's like, "Daddy, I was 8 and Pappy only won 2. Here's the funny thing though. A few minutes of just like one-on-one playfulness with Stella, she was clingy to me that day. And Stacy was even looking like she was pointing like this. Cause normally you have to catch Stella in the right mood to kind of cuddle because she's always playing and want to do fun stuff. But like in just this few minutes of time, just me and playing, just this act of playfulness, we have this whole new thing like that clicks now. Stacy picked her up and took her to McDonald's for like, after school one day, just this week, maybe Monday or Tuesday. And Stacy says, "Oh, I forgot to tell you." In the car, she was talking about, okay, so this is a funny thing, but shout out to, what's the movie with the Liger? Where they say vote for Pedro? I can't think of the
Napoleon Dynamite.
Napoleon Dynamite. There you go. Shout out to Napoleon, bro. So Stella, so I'm going to be the lion. I was like, the only thing tougher than a lion is a liger. So her eyes like blew up. So, so she was telling Stacy at McDonald's 2 days later about this liger that Pappy told her about. Like, isn't that amazing? Listen, no matter how stressed you are at home, no matter how stressed you are at work, no matter how stressed you are in your daily life, if you can't go home and have some fun, it's going to suck to go home. I'm just going to be real. So I want you to focus on this concept. Like the very first concept about this whole work-life, balance is where can I have fun and how come I'm not having more fun? Here's the last thing. The people who have more fun are more active, like just climbing on the floor or doing silly. Activity goes like around all like the whole entire lifestyle for them. And what happens is because they're more playful, they have a tendency to also be more physically fit. It's not a strong correlation, but like there's a strong correlation between overall life satisfaction, overall physical and mental well-being. There's huge keys just for people. And the small key, like it's a minor correlation, was they tend to be more physically. So that's that. So that's a big thing that I want you to kind of hang out here is work with playfulness, okay? At work, at home, in your relationships, even though Tyler's beating me in golf, like a little walk by crap dusting, bro, I'm up by 2 strokes in 1 hole after that. Right, Ty?
You got so lucky.
I get you.
Nah. Yeah, sweet. So we got three main things we're going to talk about, and then through all of that, we're going to work out an acronym called named CASH: commitment, awareness, self-control, and hope. And so as we go through that, we'll kind of hit on those, and I'm leaning on you, Dad, to be able to pull those back in since that's your acronym. So
yeah. So let me introduce it real quick, and then we're going to go into like the applicable steps about how we're going to fix it. So the first thing is commitment. So CASH. CASH, cash. So the first one is commitment. I'm going to commit to play. Seriously, that's your first step on this whole work-life balance, commit to play. Number 2, the A is for awareness. Like it is your job 100% of the time to always be aware of what we call your ROI, which is your return on investment, because that's going to change. I could dump time over here it'll outweigh time over here. So that's up to us. And we're going to get to that with Tyler's points. So that's your return on investment. That's the A, called awareness. Okay. The S is self-care. It's 100% on you to know what you need to do, what you like. I'll tell you, if we have like a rainy day, I'll go work out or both, watch like an army movie. I like action. I like the brotherhood concept, iron sharpens iron stuff. That'll fuel me up. Stacy would just go get a blanket and a book, and we'll both come out at the same level. But if you flop us, have Stacy watch an army movie and have me give a book, like, bro, don't come near me because I'll be grouchy. I got the book on tape. I'm good. If I read a book, it's going to take a long time. Okay, it's just self-care. The last piece is H. That's the hope. And even though like time, or even though you're in a spot, even though like there's no way out right now, you have to hold hope, which is think back to a time when it used to be fun and look at that. How can I reenact that? How can I make that happen? So you got to hold that hope. So that's the cash. Okay, let's go.
Sweet.
Right, that.
Yeah, I'm no expert in balance and priorities, but we've been in ministry now going on 9 years. And this December we'll be married 9 years. And so I've just jotted down 3 major things that I didn't do. I know, dude. I didn't do early on in our marriage and in my priorities and balance, and then things that I've just learned. So these are not like expert pieces by any means, but these are things that I definitely have a proven track record that when I follow some of these things, my life is better, my marriage is better, my work flows better, my balance is better. Because I think that's the main question everyone's asking in the midst of balance. You know, like, how do I feel like the analogy I always use, how do I feel like I'm not that guy that's like spinning 19 plates, right? And then one crashes, which then causes another one to crash, which then falls in. The next thing you know, and then there's just glass and plates all over. You know, we want to make sure that we're that person that's spinning those plates, and we can spin them enough to where they're all going at a nice pace and we're feeling comfortable, which in reality is not possible. Right. And so the first thing I have is just priorities, and what does it look like for priorities in your life? And once again, we're not telling you this is what you need to do in your life, but this is what I've done and what Dad has done. And so take what we've done and then apply it to your life. Don't take it as like this is what I have to do. But do what we've done and create this on your own, specifically to you, right? It's not a cookie cutter thing. So for instance, write down the priorities in your life and what they are. So for me, obviously it's my relationship with God's number 1. Then my relationship with my spouse is number 2. Then relationship with my kids is number 3. That's huge for marriage, right? It's spouse number 1, then kids. And sometimes we get that mixed up. And then it's career, right? My job. And then I would put, actually in front of that, I would probably put working out and health, and then my career, which for me is working at the church, and then friends, hobbies down the road. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is this. Sometimes we think that number 1 is God, and number 1 is, let's just say that that's not movable, right? Number 1 is God in everything you do. Priority number 1, he's the plate that everything falls onto. When you say your plate is too full, well, the plate that you hold, it is God. But number 2, 3, 4, and 5, I've always heard that those don't change, that they have to be in that order, keep your priorities straight. And when I first did that, me and my wife, or me and Alicia, we struggled quite a bit, because when I go to camp, my wife can't be priority number 2. She just can't be. It's 5 days of 24 hours. I'm on the clock as a youth pastor. You know, you're getting up at 6 a.m. I'm going to bed at 3 a.m. And I can't have an hour and a half where I can just sit and talk to my wife. Then kids came along, and kids can't be priority number 3 when I'm at convention, right? Or for me and you, when we did Resilient Men's Conference, RIP COVID, but hopefully next year we'll bring it back. That Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, my wife can't be priority number 1. You know, we got 130 dudes come in, a band, a speaker. We were putting on service activities. I can't say, you know what, I'm going to take my wife out to dinner Thursday. It's just not possible. So in those moments, my wife and I know that she has to slide down the priority list a little bit and hold the fort down, and be comfortable with moving down the priority list just for that moment, right? That doesn't mean I don't not call her or not text her or say, don't talk to me. It's just in those moments we're allowed to switch the priorities based on the emphasis that we need to put in that moment. Same thing with it's flopped then, right? So to go on our anniversary, you know, on our anniversary, that is number 2, and that stays there ahead of my kids and ahead of my job. And if something comes up for the job on my anniversary, that's a X'd out date on my calendar that I won't do anything on that day, because that's the one day a year completely red X through. I won't do anything for the church or for whatever career I have, right? So that's kind of how it looks. For instance, when sound guy Nate got married, we did the bachelor party, same thing. Now work gets even bumped down, and friends, which is normally like priority, maybe 6, 7, 8. Now that gets bumped up to number 2, right? God, now it's friends. Now it's investing in a weekend with the boys and having the time of our life. And that's now priority number 2 for those 3 days. Alicia goes to Nashville with her friends. She has a girl weekend. I'm not calling her like, why aren't we talking on the phone for an hour? I'm priority number 2. It just switches. And so I think a lot of married couples, even singles, I think we just constantly have a priority list, and we think it's so rigid that it has to be there and it has to stay there. And really, in reality, that needs to be fluid in the midst of what you're talking about, which is, where is our return on investment for that moment?
100%. Yeah. So in every situation, so like Resilient Men, like that conference isn't dead. Like that's Han Solo, like that's froze dried right now. So, we'll thaw it out here hopefully this next spring. Right. But even then, like it's serious planning and stuff, but when we're there, we're trying to lose, we're trying to have fun, we're trying to play. You're still trying to be playful. That's always there. That return on investment is like, okay, am I really worried about me, or am I really worried about the dude that I brought who's not even saved? So the return on investment is I'm listening and taking notes. Really want to make sure my boy over here like totally understands, totally has questions. So now I'm on like that awareness, like this is super important for my guy that I just brought even saved. Or like who has questions about like, where's God in my life when this happened? Okay, so you're still working through the list, and you're still juggling through that. Like Alicia, are doing a honeymoon thing or not an anniversary thing. Like that's 100% having fun, always return on investment, which is like, do I want to play golf 18 holes and have Lisa mad at me? Or maybe I can do 9 and she can hang out with me while we can talk. Or maybe I'll just scrap golf altogether. And what's my biggest return on investment when it's a couples weekend? Golf's not on that list, right? Unless you're in Vail and you roll the dice. Golf my activity wins. Like, honey, it's the mountains. Like, baby girl, let me sing to you.
The only way that works is, and Alicia made a comment here, I'll read in a second. The only way that works is if it's a fair trade, right? So the time in for the golf, then I would have to do like, craft shopping or something. But Alicia said we both talk about the move on the list so that we both are aware of what is happening. So that's where that mutual agreement comes in, where I'm not just like, hey, you're priority number 5 now because I'm going to a bachelor party. So I'm golfing all weekend and I'm axe throwing. Like it's like, hey, this is what's happening. Are you cool with it? Are you comfortable with it? This is what it's going to mean. This is what you're going to have to do now. Is that mutual agreement? Cool. We sign off on it and we're both on that same page. So yeah.
Okay. So quick question, quick thought for you. So typically for girls, they're always in on communicating, even to the point of like maybe over communicating.
Oh yeah.
How do you as a dude level up your communication skills to be on the same page as Alicia? How'd you get there?
Well, if I'm being honest, I'm not there. So she over communicates, and I have under communicated forever. And I've slowly got to the point where I realize that what I think is communication and what she thinks is communication are not the same thing. So now I'm trying to, and we still fight about it. I mean, when I say fight, like we get in arguments, I'm not like sleeping in the spare bedroom, but and we still argue about it all the time, because she, like, one thing that really bothers me is every night, like around dinner time, we talk about our schedule for that night and for the next day. Then right before we go to bed, before she can sleep, to feel comfortable, we go over it again, which makes me feel like we weren't literally which makes me feel like we weren't really listening the first time. So we do it, but she feels like I wasn't really fully invested in the conversation the first time. So yeah, it's a constant, I just say it like this: to be a better communicator, you have to talk about how you're communicating, which is, it seems like it's over communication, which it is. So we are always talking about, are we communicating enough about how we communicate? So I'm not there. No. And I'm sure Alicia, she's watching, and she could pop up in the comments and kind of go from the girls' perspective, which, by the way, if you're watching, please hop into the comments. I got it right here. We're trying to read some questions. You got some questions, something you need clarification for, hop on the comments and go from there. But I'll say this. I'm just interactive. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm better than I was 8 years ago when we first got married. But at the same time, we just communicate differently. And so my question to her is always like, how can I help that communication and her, and just having an open communication about how much we're communicating.
Yeah, correct. And so like if we go back to our vacation to Vail, I could have rented like this full body suspension mountain bike, and I could have went up and go win some hard trails, but I'm not there for me. There's also these road bikes, and they had serious fun trails. Like you could go do these scenic routes like that follow a stream, like 40 miles or something I could handle quickly. And Stacy's like, just take a few hours, just go. And I was like, nah, because like then I don't have the time to buy back time for her, and I just don't think that's right. We're there for a couples week, right, or weekend. So like I want you to think about this. Like it takes a lot of over communicating because we'll all cave to each other. Like I'll cave to my wife sometimes, she'll cave to me sometimes. But like, is it really the right thing to do when you're there on a couples weekend? So my biggest ROI, so if you go down to awareness, step number 2 on cash, I have to be aware of what's the biggest ROI. Like there's no doubt in the world, like I would have really loved a bike ride there just to go hard and fast, like on a road bike and not have no worries, but that's not why I'm there. So how can I take my wife out and we can both have some fun? She liked to see the scenery. She had some fun on the golf cart. Like it's probably not her best fun, but like it was fun. Makes sense? So that's cool. So I just wanted to make this point too. Like in 9 years of marriage, you're leveling up your communication still. In 33 years of marriage, I'm leveling up my communication still because my wife still over communicates to me because like maybe I didn't pick up on it the first time or the third time, right? Yep. It's still a thing. And you think about how dudes communicate, it's like, bro, you golfing? Yeah, I'm in. That's it. Then like 30 minutes before like tea time, we're like, where are you at? Oh yeah, I'm on my way. Like it's super basic, right? And that's not how couples should interact. All right. Cool. What do you got next?
Alicia said, we are a work in progress. She said, yes, the key is talking about how we are talking.
Correct.
Sounds like the principle of really being present wherever you are. Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed. Present. Next thing I want to talk about is when I first got into ministry, I heard everyone tell me that ministry is a marathon. And especially when you talk about leading people to Jesus and, what the commitment looks like. And we always say that to people, following God is a marathon, following Jesus is a marathon. And I get it in one area or one respect that a marathon is long. We're talking about a lifelong journey, hopefully in the ministry. We're talking about a lifelong journey of following Jesus or being a follower of God. But a marathon runner runs at the same pace for the most part from start to finish. They might have an accelerated first mile to set the pace, to get the muscles, and they might have an accelerated second, maybe last mile, second to last mile. But for the most part, they're wanting to hit, whatever 5 minutes or 6 minutes, depending on how good the marathon runner they are, every mile for 26 miles. And that is not ministry that I've experienced and or life that I've experienced. So instead of that, I tell, first of all, pastors, youth pastors that are just joining the ministry, and I think it's applicable to all of us in life, that life is not necessarily a marathon, but I try to maybe draw the correlation between the Tour de France. And if you've ever seen the Tour de France, it's I think it's 21 days, and each leg of it is something different, right? And so it's maybe one day is like and don't quote me on the miles, but it's something like a 10-mile or 20-mile sprint. I mean, they're flying, they're pedaling as hard as they can. It's a sprint leg, and they're done in 40 minutes, let's say, right? Then day 3 is like a 48-mile long ride where they're in the flying V, they're packing up, they're drifting, they're aerodynamically riding as a team in the cycle lines. And then, another day is a sprint climb where it's they're standing over the handlebars, just grinding out elevation of, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 foot climbs. It's not the same, dude. We just watched it like 2 weeks ago. So that's why I popped in my head. But it's never the same pace, steadily moving, going forward. And life
No.
is not that way. I don't care what you say. It's not. It's moments of sprinting and feeling like you're running with your head cut off, and then moments of like, I am so bored with life right now. I am doing nothing. And then I can't handle any more on my plate. And then
Yeah.
back to like, I'm not even a successful person in society. And it's just this constant ebb and flow of going as hard as you can and feeling like you can't do any more to like, am I even worth anything to this world?
Right. And that's where I call life a climb, right? We've always taught the life is a climb because I don't think it's level ground. It's always a climb because when you stop on anything, like the whole use it or lose it thing, like it doesn't matter if you're working on any kind of crowd, like Xbox, biking, artistic stuff, you putting on muscle. It doesn't matter what you're doing. As soon as you stop, you lose it. There's no other way around it. Like as soon as I lose my momentum and I slow down, I'm going to be starting to cave. So exactly, it's a climb, and some of those are steep pitches, some of those are sprints, some of those are downhills, and there's a lot of plateaus.
Yeah, and so in life, when it comes to balance, it goes back to making sure that priority list is ever flowing, right, and changing, and then knowing
Yeah.
that for certain seasons, we might just be just nose down grinding as a family, but work has now pushed even a little bit further, right? So there's
Right.
always a season just for us in our life that's really crazy, and it's always spring, May into June. It's always, graduation Sunday, graduation parties, end of the year events, leading right into kicking off into Niobrara trip, which kicks off into camp, which kicks off into our mission trip. Obviously, all pre-COVID. But
Yeah.
that season of our life is mayhem. It's a sprint. And it's moments of week or two breaks, but for the most part, we're nose down grinding like crazy. And our family is affected. Our kids are affected. Me and Alicia's quality time is affected. My involvement in my kids' life is affected. And we just know that for that time, balance is a little different in that moment. And then that's why we always take our vacation end of July into August, because now I've lacked in some of those relationships that now I want to reinvest back into after that sprint marathon climb happened. And so
Yeah.
it's not like I'm a terrible dad. I still do everything I try to do, but I just know for that moment, Alicia is going to have to carry a little bit more of the load, or vice versa. Like when Alicia's super heavy with the Christmas Eve services and even the Easter services because she's on the worship team. So they do like 2 or 3 run-throughs before it. Then she's there 2 hours before service. And so she knows that in the midst of that, I carry a little bit more of the load while she's doing some of those sprinting moments where the kids aren't going to be able to see her. She's not going to be able to tuck them into bed every single night that week, and we have to be okay with that. Whether you're single, that's the same thing happens. Maybe your friend relationships have to get pushed to the side. Your guy time or your girl time or your hunting time. And we just have to be okay with the changing pace of life. And it's not just a steady, nice and easy pace going forward forever.
Yeah. And the other thing you have to remember there is like, okay, for you coming out of your camp week or Niobrara week where you're literally getting maybe 5 hours of sleep, you're exhausted, dehydrated, like, you still got sand in your hair, like whatever.
I would love
Okay.
5 hours of sleep during camp.
Okay, 3. And then you get home, right? And you got to remember, Alicia's had, the girls for like 5 days straight. Okay, so here's the idea. You have to figure out where we're at. So if you take a look at the cash, right, you're not going to want to just come in and be playful dad, right? The awareness piece, the return on investment is like, I'm spent. Like for me to invest right now, I'm not going to get anything back because I'm not going to invest that much. So you're in this self-care concept, right? Like, man, I'm licking my own wound right now. I'm just trying to reboot. Here's the crash. Alicia is also on self-care. Like I've been single mom. I've been running crazy. Like here, take the girls. And you're like, I can't even sit up. Like, what do you mean take the girls, right? So here's the idea. Like that self-care piece this is where the presence is. Okay. The presence is like, I have to be present, which is your head could be like, oh, I forgot to unload that camper. Oh man, I still have to do all the inventory on the stuff. Like, and Alicia's like, I have all this list to do because I put it off because I wanted Tyler to be home so you can watch the girls. So I get my list done. And here's the thing. Neither one of you are present because your head's still at work. Her head's still at chores, and neither one of you are present. The whole entire piece of work, life, family balance is understand your ROI, which is right now Alicia needs me more than anything. So you put the kids a movie, they'll be happy, and you sit there on the couch and be like, babe, how's your week? And it's that simple to be present. Like the best thing to remember if you're present is just back up where you're at, look down and be like, be where my feet are. Like I can't focus out here. I can't focus out there. Like I haven't got a workout in. Like I haven't been on my DMO, but you're just looking at the feet and be like, okay, how would it feel to be a single parent for 4 days with my 2 crazy Sanchez girls?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably genetic. I get it. Okay.
Yeah. And it goes back to that communication piece though, is being able to talk about what that looks like. Because when we first had kids, it was that I got home and the second I walked in the door, Alicia's like, we're going to the zoo, we're going to the park, we're eating ice cream, and then we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I'm like trying to keep 2 eyes open. So now I walk in the door, I spend about 30 minutes with the girls, and then I take like a 4-hour nap. And then after the nap, then it's all guns blazing family time. But we've known now that because then I'm just dragging and she's like, you're not even having fun. And the zoos, you're not even paying attention. And I'm like, nodding off. And so now I come home. Yeah, I'm not there. So, but we've talked about that, and we've, figured that out. And so we didn't get it right. And so now I come home, I say, hi, awesome. Dad's going to go take a nap. They kind of keep it quiet, sleep 2, 3, 4 hours, and then wake up. And then the next, rest half of that day. And the next day it's all 100% present as a dad and investing in them. Yeah. Lisa said the gift of being able to make adjustments and a do-over, learning to not live in the extremes, consistently showing up for one another in season and out of season. Yeah. I love the not living in the extremes. Yes. But knowing that the extremes do take place and do need a full investment and you can't stay there. And so whatever that looks like in your job or in your family time, like Pastor Johnny does a really good job to know, like he'll have that conversation with us. Like, hey, these next 2 weeks, I'm going to ask you to just, absolutely go hard. And then after that, we're all going to take 2 or 3 days off, or after that, now we have some break time and a breather and a slower week or 2. But yeah, not living in the extremes. That's where people get burnt out and hurt. And that comes down to that self-care piece, in that cash, the S, not being able to figure out what you need to recharge. Yeah, that's 100%. So like, okay, let's say I'm your fellow pastor and, we just went 2 weeks hard Christmas and now we're like, we get 3 days off. You text me and like, hey, let's go sledding. I'm like, I don't even like the cold, but I don't want to be left out. So I'm going to go. And I go and my head's not in the game. I'm not present. I'm not committed to playing. I'm like, my feet are cold. My hands are numb. This is stupid. I should have said no. Like, do you see what I mean? So many people say yes to the stuff that they don't want to do, but they're not committed to play. So if you're not committed to play, then what are you doing? You're just like a walking zombie. Well, then it's more draining.
Yeah. And it's more draining on you because you feel like, dude, I invited Raul and now look at him. Like, what? Like, why? I don't know why I talked to that dude. And then there's all this, like, so I'm like, why Ty invite me? And now he's like acting all cold to me. Like, there's all these little mental head games. Here's the idea. You have to commit to that self-care piece, which is to be present. So I get that text and I'm like, dude, I would love to go. Here's my question though. I get cold really fast. Are we going to be there for like 4 hours or can we go for 2 hours and then go get some like soup? You see, I'm committing to me and my self-care. I know what I need. I need to be present because I need warmth. I need some of the connection, but I also know I need a connection with you. Like, I don't want to say no to you. So we negotiate a little bit. You see what I mean? Like these things aren't as difficult as they seem. But what happens is people don't even know what to do there, so they don't answer you. They just kind of ghost you. And then my girlfriend texts me, no, I ain't watching no chick flick. So I ghost her or be like, I got a cold. But then she hears somewhere else or someone else's story that I'm all jacked up gaming, like, oh, let's go, 20 KD ratio, who's the man? And then like, I'm sick, but you just saw the energy and now like, okay, now what? You see what I mean? Like everyone knows what to do, but they're afraid to take that challenge or that conflict. So they punt it, they back away. And then now none of us are present because now I'm like, oh, I should call Ty. Oh, I should have answered my girlfriend. I probably shouldn't have played Xbox when I knew I was supposed to take a nap to recover. You see all these pieces?
Yep.
So the work-life balance isn't so much about work-life balance. It's about commitment to where you're supposed to be at right now. Return on investment. Be present on where your self-care is.
And the question,
you get up and have hope. Like, okay, I'm feeling good. Let's go. This is good.
Yeah. And but the thing that the thing that we struggle to answer is that maybe at the core of why you are feeling so unbalanced. Let me say it this way. If you are struggling to find balance in your life, maybe the question you should be asking yourself is, have you said no to enough things? Like
Yes.
at the core of this, it's maybe not even a priority list thing. Maybe it's not even a commitment or awareness or self-care thing. Maybe you're just saying yes to too many things in your life, and you need to cut out some things in your life that are not that good for you, you know?
Yeah. And so, okay. So if I look back at my life, like when I was out of balance,
And they don't even have to be bad things.
no.
They're just maybe not for that moment.
Correct. So
You know?
the idea is like in our family. Okay. So I didn't have a dad, right? My birth dad died. My stepfather figures were like, I would just say broken, addicted, drug addicted, like this. Yeah. They had issues.
They didn't have
Like,
their own life in line.
They didn't have their own lifeline. So, and each one of them had broken dads. And so they're doing the default parenting of a broken dad to a broken dad to a broken dad. Okay. And so I really had this push to outwork everybody, probably just to get attention. So my mom was a workaholic. My grandma's a workaholic. They got attention probably for working super hard, being kids, working in fields, like just being pushed into work really early. And so at 16, I took pride in being able to run grandma's kitchen. And I outworked adults, and everybody's like, dude, you're a beast, dude. And so I take that work ethic and I still outwork dudes. And there's sometimes when I ask myself a question, like, why am I trying to work so hard at this thing? Like, and so I like, who am I trying to impress? And I don't even know sometimes, but I ask this question: why did I say yes when I wanted to say no? And that's where the money is. That's where I like have to pull back a little bit, have some awareness. And I'm like, okay, what's my return on this investment? I'm doing this thing and I'm busting my butt. I'm not taking my kids and I'm not taking my wife and I'm not making money. So like for example, volunteering on the board. I'm like, I just said yes because I know this dude. So then I started backing out of things I said yes to out of like a feeling of obligation, not as a feeling of like, I'm going to get a return on investment for me. And my time at that place, we're going to get a return on investment on seeds in that ministry or whatever that is. We have to be honest with ourselves. Like, why did I say yes when I wanted to say no? And the power of saying no isn't like at all taken away from you. Like I do less things now, but I'm way more productive on everything I do, right? Because you have to shed those things that are just dead weight to us or stealing energy from us, right? So like I want you to think about this. The cash thing that I just say, it's just a funny thing, but cash for P. Cash for P, P-E-E. Like I used to catch Tyler like next to the tree back in the day. Cash for P, okay? The PEE is personal exchange of energy. So anytime you're struggling, you look at this cash thing and you say, okay, so where is my personal exchange of energy? So I give this much time into a board, but I literally feel like it takes 6 hours out of me for an hour. Like that's a bad exchange of energy for me. You understand that? And so now I can say no when I wanted, or I can say no when I wanted to say no, not saying yes when I wanted to say no. That's good, Ty.
Yep. Yeah. One thing me and Alicia learned at a conference one time by Andy Stanley and Craig Gershell, and I think it's what she's hinting at. She says, I loved when we learned the no doesn't mean no forever. It just means no for now. And so Andy Stanley, I don't know if you know him, he's got a huge church, North Point. And he said that when he got hired, he had, his kids at home, and he told the church he was only working 40 hours a week. And I'm not saying do this. I'm just telling you the example he gave. Working 40 hours a week, and his motto was, if God can't grow the church, which it's God's church, with me busting my butt for 40 hours a week, then we're missing the point of what church looks like. That in that season, he was investing in his family and his kids. He wasn't going to miss activities. His kids weren't going to grow up hating the church. He was going to have dinner with them. He wasn't going to be the dad that, married the church and was the father to the congregation, but not to his own kids. And so he worked 40 hours during that time. And then when he was an empty nester, he began then to put in 60 to 70 hours because it looked different. His wife had a dinner appointment with some girlfriends, and so, or they were going out to doing something. And so he's like, go home and sit, or stay at the office and work more. And so I'm not saying that's the right model to do it. I'm just saying in moments we have to be able to say, you know what, not for right now, but knowing that it doesn't mean no forever, It's just not right now. In the season I'm in, you can't do anymore, maybe, maybe some of those things, need to get bumped to the side.
Yeah. And so back in 2004, I was with a big company and they moved to the dunes and I was going to go. They offered me to go and like buy in with partnership and all that kind of stuff. If I get in my wrong mindset, I look back at that decision and I think, man, finances would be about like 4 times better than they are right now. Right. But then I think about the hours I had to do because the overhead was 3 times. So think about this. The overhead, which is like all my clinic expenses for the month, is 3 times where we're at right now. Right. So that means I have to work 3 times more to bring in the same amount of money. Does it make sense? But the exchange was like profit sharing. So my 401k or retirement or something would have been a bigger nest egg down the road. So here's my ROI, like, okay, so I can dump all these hours now and I can get a nest egg later. Or I could say no, and I could be my own boss and still work about 50 hours a week instead of 60 or more. And I could coach all my kids' sports and I could show up at all their games, even their JV games where they got in like, the last 2 plays of the game. Take a quick picture.
That ain't never me. That was never me. I played all JV.
I looked at you. I was like,
that was Terrence and
hey,
Terry.
I didn't say any names. I'm just talking JV. Okay. I'm just talking. All my boys were starters, but I'm just talking JV. Okay. But here I was still there.
I'm not a junior playing JV. That must be the other brothers.
Okay. Neither were they, but I'm just saying. But here's the thing. Like, that's the ROI I chose. So like down the road, there's a smaller nest egg. But my investment, and those of you who know me, my investment isn't finances. My investment is a living legacy. So there's a dude at Creighton. There's a dude I'm talking to. There's a dude in Ames. Those are the living legacies. Like if you want to know who I am, ask my kids, right? Because you'll speak similar language. So that's where I want you to focus on. This ROI isn't just a work-life balance or a work relationship balance. It's life balance. It's literally life-changing. If you can ask yourself all the time, where is my return on investment? And then this thing, the cash for your P, right? So where is my personal exchange of energy? Where's that going? Make sense?
Yep. Last
Awesome.
piece, and then we'll get out of here. And once again, if you're watching, you have questions or comments or points or a specific situation, please hop in the comments. We got a ton of you in here. Or if you got a question for me or my dad, we'd love to answer it. Please don't be shy. It usually takes 1 or 2 people to ask a question, and then the questions start flowing. But last point that I always live by is block scheduling. And so what this looks like in simplest terms, I kind of picked it up in high school, right? So you switch to block scheduling, which is A-B days. So you have 4 periods and then 2 half periods. And so you go A-B, A day 1 through 4, B day 1 through 4. But like personally in my life, it looks like, you block out focus times. And it's really because I struggle to focus. So I just set block times from like, let's say 9 to 10 in the morning, I'm doing task A, take a little break, walk around, then 10:15 to 11, I'm doing task B. And I try not to bleed those over. So once one task is done, I move on to the next task. So what that looks like is when I get home then, usually at our house, 5 to 6:30 is getting in, undoing backpacks, shoes, changing clothes, dinner, cleaning dinner. And then 6:30, 7:30 is like what we call dads on the ground, dogs, where you're just diving on the ground and trying to invest and play with the kids as much as possible. And then, 7:30 to 8:30 is bedtime, getting ready, cleaning up. And then after that's, work, LXI stuff, videos, maybe Netflix, hanging out with the wife, doing all those things. So if I find myself allowing those to be blended, which I always do, and Alicia always is my, a spouse can easily be that awareness piece, right? Which brings some of the attention. Hey, you're not doing this. And so one of the things I struggle with is blending those or bleeding over. So, the time I'm supposed to be just investing just in my kids, I find myself on my phone, doing the mindless scrolling for no reason, or sometimes work comes into that and I'm returning emails or messages or talking to students or trying to think about a sermon or writing stuff down or even, doing some podcast stuff. And so she's always constantly saying, like, hey, no, this is a time where your kids need you for an hour. Like just invest in that hour, block that hour out for your kids or for whatever that is in your life. And so that looks like a ton of things, if you're single and you don't have kids, and maybe your 4 to 5 every day is the gym, So your gym, 4 to 5, your gym. You're not gym and work. You're not gym and friends. You're not gym and girlfriend. You're gym, and that's it.
Correct.
5 to 6, it's house chores, or it's yard work. And so that's what it is. It's not work and yard work. It's literally just yard work. Or maybe 7 to 8's your self-care. That's when you veg out. Maybe you allow yourself to scroll, or you read a book, or you shoot your boat, whatever it is. But it's like, it has to be block scheduling to where you're focused, and then, okay, you're cool, you flush it, you move on, and now you're on to the next thing that is on that priority list that's ever changing.
Correct. Yeah. And that's the number one thing, is people try to take too many things to too many places. So like, taking work, on your vacation, right? Or taking like some kind of work or a book to read when you're supposed to be watching your kid play. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you try to split time, you're splitting your attention. If you split your attention, you're not present. If you're not present, people are talking to you and they get this vibe like, you don't even care about me. You're not here. You're not even hearing me. You're not even seeing me. Like, why are we even doing this? And then people are like, man, Ty was off. Like, I don't know. So the next time we like try to get together, I'm going to be butthurt about it and just pull away. So you got to remember that you not being present not only wrecks your work-life balance, but it also sends a signal that I'm not invested in whomever I'm communicating with, especially if that's a spouse, a girlfriend, or even like your best friend.
There's nothing worse than going out to eat with someone, and they're doing like this whole thing, like, oh yeah, totally, it's crazy, and like they're just sitting on their phone, and you're like talking, but you haven't made eye contact for 2 or 3 minutes. You're like, dude, are you even paying attention to what I'm saying? Yeah. The number one thing to figure out if you're fully invested is try to play with a 4 or 5-year-old not fully invested. Stella will call me out all day long. She'll be like, Tyler or Daddy, play Hatchimals with me or whatever. And so I'm playing and I'm doing like the hop jump. She's like, you're not even listening. She's like, I said I punched you in the face, and I'm like, oh, if I fall over, she'll be like, get off your phone. You're not looking. And so. Yeah.
That's remember when a couple of years ago when we were leaving your house playing games or whatever, and she was making everybody like cookies or something, right? And she came up to me and she's like, "Hey, Pappy, take a bite of my cookie. What do you think?" And I was talking, so I just leaned over, did kind of like a fake bite, and then she started crying.
No, she was like bloody murder screaming. You broke her heart into 1,000 pieces.
Yes, just because I was like in the middle of conversation, I was like, like a fake bite, and she knew it wasn't real.
She was in the kitchen slaving over that, whatever it was, dirty sock soup for a while, and you didn't try it.
I know.
Yeah.
Even my fake was fake. Like,
the other night. I mean, it goes even for your spouse. Like the other night, we were watching Netflix, The Umbrella Academy, and it's a series on Netflix about some superhero kids. And I was on my phone, I don't know what I was doing, looking up cars or something. And Alicia paused it, and she's like, "It's really bothering me that you're not fully invested in watching this Netflix series." And I was like, "What? That has no effect on." Like, and she's like, "No, because then you're missing points. You're not fully invested." So I was like, "Okay, point proven. You caught me." Put my phone down, watch the Netflix show. So I mean, it doesn't have to be spouse. It doesn't have to be kids. You're talking about even boss, coworkers, friends. Some of the most genuine friendship happens eye-to-eye conversation. That's why dinner, coffee, all that stuff is so important, and not social media and not all those other things.
So okay, let's say work meeting. So I'm in a work meeting, and like our supervisor calls you, Ty, and asks you for something. You guys are talking about like your department. I'm in a different department, right? So I reach under the table and I start texting. I start messing around. Nobody's gonna care because we're all adults and like we're all whatever. So I'm just sitting here just doing this. The problem is people go like, yeah, but it didn't hurt anything. Like the crap I missed was like stupid. It wasn't even pertaining to me. Here's the issue. If you're all in there for a reason, you want to level up your team. So if I let my mind go for a second, I got split attention. That's like if your offense was running 2 separate plays, like you guys suck. So if I stay on point from the outside listening, I have now the whole mastermind technique, which is I know nothing about this. That's a different department. But bro, here, I just have a quick question. Like maybe this is stupid. And I throw it out there, and then you guys look at each other, and you're like, dude, that might work. I'm like, oh, all right. It was a Hail Mary kind of, but okay. Like that's the whole purpose of brainstorming is like people who don't understand it fully just come in with a bright, open mind, and they just come up with the most genuine, genius pieces of information. But all of us are like so quick to be like, oh, this doesn't pertain to me, and I check out. You're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting the whole team. And that's
Well,
the
and
whole
to
thing.
me, it just seems that
Especially
it sends a terrible picture because it's a selfish picture that you're sending people, that you only are involved in the conversation when it's about your department or your specific thing,
right.
or when you're out to eat, it has nothing to do with business. I'm just like, hey, Dad, how's your life? And as you're telling me about your life, I'm on my phone. And then when you're like, how's your life? And I'm like, oh, okay, listen to this. I need you paying attention to my story. Then it's like, dude, you didn't even listen to my story, but now I'm supposed to be fully invested in your life and what you're doing. It just sends selfish picture that you only care about what you're talking about.
Yeah. So some of the best interventions I've developed over 30 years is literally come from a kid asking a question. Like, I don't even know if this is possible, but like, is there a way you can teach me how to do this? I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. You know what? I'll tell you that you think about how that would work for you. If I could teach you that, what would you do? How would you level up? That's that hope thing. Okay. You're sitting here, you're stuck. And my job is to take your brain and see past. And this is where we always talk about begin with the end in mind, right? Because if you can begin with the end, you can see the win. And so I say to the people, I'd say, okay, so you pretend like I gave you what you wanted, and I want you to write down what that would look for you. What would that open up? What would that feel like? So I get them to see that image of winning. And then I go to work and research, and like, I have no clue. And I find something, I'm like, okay, so let's just look at it this way. And then they come back and they're like, that worked. And I was like, no way. Like, it's stupid, right? Yep. So some of the people who have the least amount of knowledge come up with the best ideas. And that's what we have to understand is anybody can bring like big game to any game, but they have to be present. Make sense?
Like it. Alicia said she was deeply wounded. I think it was back to when you didn't give Stella her
so
due
sad.
attention with the food she created for you. Dylan said nothing like trying to listen to this about balance and then have something come up, so I have to leave. Guess I'll listen tomorrow. Sabrina Cooley
is fully intentional on what he has to go do.
Right, which is true. Yeah. Bounce out of this, slide this to priority, 4 or 5, bring that whatever's priority is urgent. I get it. Yeah. Sabrina Cooley said it doesn't cost anything to pay attention. Ooh. Adam said, y'all got some great points. Thank you. I appreciate that. Miss you, dude. Yes, she was. Oh, Carly said, yes, she was. Back to Stella being hurt. So my takeaways, if I could leave you with any piece of advice, obviously not being any expert in any of this. Number one, I would go back and review that your priorities can change. God always is number one. Your faith in who Jesus is and his never changing faithfulness in the midst of a changing world is always number one. And then 2, 3, 4, wife, kid, work, exercise, health has to change and be fluid. Just the other day, we've been in just a crazy, just like everyone else, crazy time in life. And I had to look at Alicia and I was like, do not do the dishes. Like, I know that's what we do, but tonight and tomorrow, we need to just sit on the couch and chill. Like, the dishes are going to have chicken, and let's get the raw chicken out, and like, let's do the bare minimum so we don't get ants and an infestation, but we're not focusing on that. There's 2 loads of laundry sitting there in the basket, but for 2 nights, I need you let's just play Play-Doh. Let's just invest in our family and not do that. And that's not saying that, that stuff is not important, but there's moments where your house just needs to be a disaster, dude. Like, you just need to have clutter and crap everywhere and know that there's other things in that priority for those days. So that's the point that I'm trying to make. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's the wife bumps down and friendship goes up. Number 2, life is just full of multiple sprints and multiple changes of pace. It's not a steady paced marathon. I think, who was it? Was it Lisa who said, just don't live in the extremes, but Correct. Know that as a family, there are extreme moments that you have to just put your nose down and grind it out and then breathe afterwards. And then lastly, block out and set aside time for those priorities and don't be, I think you said it, be present. I think Alex Pick said it too, be present in those moments for what that is. So at work, you're fully invested. At family time, you're fully invested. With relationships, kids, friendships, hobbies, fully invested. There's nothing worse than hanging out, like we said, with someone that is trying to do 2 or 3 different things and no one wins and no one has any sort of investment into any of that when you're just split focus.
Correct. Yeah.
Any other points you would like to make? Follow any of those up?
My big takeaway is where we started. Like, you have to commit to play. You have to commit to play. I see so many people where money's not an issue. They can do anything in the world that they want, but they're not happy. And part of the reason why they're not happy is they don't have a hobby, they don't have fun, they don't play because everything is so serious. So, and there's people who have a great marriage who still don't know how to play. They just walking around bored, but they just have a couple times that's immaculate, but they still don't know how to play. The idea is like take play into every area you can, however silly that may look. Start to engage in that playfulness. Like think about a kid. Like the Bible says, we have to have like faith like a child. That's like the faith to believe over mountains and stuff. Everybody gets that. Like just to be silly. Just to be silly, like, hey, taste my coffee. And it's just like fake. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. I was just thinking it'd be dope if we had coffee right now. Oh, yeah. And you both laugh. Like, it's just silly. Just be silly, right? And start living at where you're at because you'll start to develop that side of your engine. And I promise you, you'll bring out this little kid in you where you just start to just like have fun with things. Like you just laugh, joy, just giggle. Like it's crazy. So at our office, like Teresa and Lisa were sitting down in the office a few weeks ago, and I was just getting some notes and stuff. And I looked over, and just how they had their shirts. One of them had COVID, and one of them had like outdoors thing. So this little look like Lisa had roses on her shirt, and I think Teresa had like trees and stuff. I'm just looking at them. I was like, bruh, you guys have the answer for COVID. And they're like, what? And I was like, you have an answer for COVID. And they just looked and they're like, what do you mean? And I just started just being silly with it. And they just died laughing. Then I leave the room and they hear them laughing 50 minutes later. A couple days later, they're just like, dude, that was so funny. Like just trees and roses. And it just became this like funny thing. So now we're like, our team has the answer for COVID. Let's go. We just started farting around with it. But I just have silly, stupid ideas sometimes. And I've just learned to throw them out there. And sometimes people are like, what? No. Okay. Like Tave, Dad, stop. Yeah. Some of those fail. That's okay. But like some of those win and you're like, oh, okay. It was cool, but I didn't know it was that funny. But then there's just little wins. So my last thing for you is like commit to play. I promise you it'll change your life.
Well, don't they say laughter is the best medicine?
Absolutely.
Sweet. Absolutely. All right. Don't forget to ring that bell so you get notified every time we get a new video out. Also, give us a thumbs up so we can push this video so more people can see it. And then, as always, subscribe to the channel. Help us out. We love you. As always, renew your perspective, move towards uncertainty, and find what's awesome about that in every situation.
I had to realize what's inside of me. For all of the people that lied to me. For all of the people that said I would fall off. Oh, boy, what a time to be alive. I wrote this for everyone, feel like they counted out. You need to look in the mirror and tell yourself it's time to be who I am now. Greatness.